Trump must have woken up in a cold sweat this morning because at 5 a.m. he took to social media like a scorned ex to whine about the Republican Fed chair, Jerome Powell. And Trump had good reason to panic because while speaking at the Economic Club of Chicago, Powell was not holding back. Short of calling out Donald by name, he basically told America that Trump has no idea what he's doing and there's no saving him.
And in America, you're on your own.
And that pissed off the wasp's nest over at Fox News. I've got all those clips for you, and I want to thank you guys for supporting us here as always. We are on the road to 1 million.
Right to the top.
One of the things that Trump won on was this belief that he was going to be good for the economy. For a brief moment after the election, there was a sharp decline in people saying that the economy was getting worse. This was attributed to how great Trump was going to be for the economy. But that is no longer the case, as Trump's taxes, aka tariffs, are hitting Americans like Elon does K. And Jerome Powell went on to dash any hopes that the Republicans had, that their attempt to brainwash folks about how tariffs work would actually change how tariffs work. I mean, I seriously think they thought they could thoughts and prayers their way to a booming economy. In reality, they're just going to cause inflation to rise, and that's according to Powell.
The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. Tariffs are highly likely to generate at least a temporary rise in inflation. The inflationary effects could also be more persistent. Avoiding that outcome will depend on the size of the effects, on how long it takes for them to pass through fully to prices, and ultimately on keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored.
Now, what he just said is a pretty big problem for the soursop we call a president, because he wants to be able to say that inflation is going down. But Jerome had to hit him with the cold water with this one.
As that great Chicagoan Ferris Bueller once noted, life moves pretty fast. For the time being, we are well positioned to wait for greater clarity before considering any adjustments to our policy stance.
I don't know if it's obvious how amazing of a reference that is, because there's this clip from Ferris Bueller that's been going viral after Trump went through with the tariffs. I'm not sure if Powell is specifically referencing it, but it perfectly explains why Trump is playing with fire here. I'll play it for you.
In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? Great Depression, passed the, the tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression.
That's right, the Great Depression. That's what Trump meant when he said, "Make America great again." But of course, the egomaniac in office wouldn't be happy with just rehashing the past. He wants to be the greatest. He's going even further than that, according to Powell.
There's not any real experience. I mean, the Smoot-Hawley tariffs were actually not this large, and they were 95 years ago, so there isn't a modern experience of how to think about this. And businesses and households are saying in surveys that they are experiencing incredibly high uncertainty.
Now that is a horrible prediction for Trump, but the big nail in the coffin for him is that when asked if the Fed was going to swoop in and save Trump by lowering the interest rates and easing the burden of these taxes, here's what Jerome said.
Some people believe the Fed will intervene if the stock market plummets, the so-called Fed put. Are they correct?
I'm going to say no with an explanation. So what I think is going on in markets is markets are processing what's going on. And, it's really the policies, particularly the trade policy. And really the question is, where's that going to come in? Where's that going to land? And we don't know that yet.
This sent MAGA land into code orange. They freaked out, taking no time at all to jump down Powell's neck, who I will remind you is a fellow Republican.
Kevin, I want to talk about what Jerome Powell did today. He essentially came out and said that these tariffs, which the Democrats are going to seize on, obviously, that the tariffs are going to, likely to create some type of recession, and that will hurt U.S. growth forecasts going forward, which, I mean, obviously the Trump administration thinks the exact opposite about how these tariffs will work. But of course, that sent the market way down. And you can kind of see this little game playing out between Powell and the Trump administration. Do you think the Trump administration needs to come out in a full-throated manner and refute what the Fed chair said today about an issue that is still number one on the minds of all voters now and will be on the midterms?
Well, what he said is hurting the economy. The market reacts to what he said.
Powell isn't scaring Americans. The orange monkey behind the wheel is scaring Americans. All Powell is doing is his job as Fed chair and correctly pointing out that these tariffs are an economic death sentence, which made Trump go wild this morning, posting this on social media. Jerome Powell of the Fed, who was always too late and wrong, yesterday issued a report which was another and typical complete mess. Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. I guess he didn't let off enough steam at 5 a.m. this morning because as soon as he got a camera pointed at his grotesque face, he made sure to threaten Powell.
I would say the Fed really owes it to the American people to get interest rates down. That's the only thing he's good for. And he would have an effect on that if he lowered them. And I think at some point he will. He's going to have a lot of political pressure. You know, they are political also. And I think there's a lot of political pressure for him to lower interest rates.
I don't know what political power Trump is going to impose on Powell, but it's not going to be easy to have him terminated. He can't just pull his classic move of telling him he's fired and then getting a Tootsie Roll for being a good boy. The Fed chair can't be removed by the president like a cabinet member or an executive employee, a point that Jerome Powell himself points out.
And should one worry about threats to the Fed's independence once you're gone?
So our independence is a matter of law. Congress has, in our statute, we're not removable except for cause. We serve very long terms, seemingly endless terms. So we're protected in the law. So, you know, Congress could change that law, but I don't think there's any danger of that. Fed independence has pretty broad support across both political parties and in both sides of the Hill. So I think that's not a problem.
Now, this completely pissed Trump off. He wants to get his hands on Powell more than a Big Mac and fries. And when he was told that he can't just fire Powell, Trump still seems pretty confident that he can get him to leave.
Mr. President, on Jerome Powell, you said that the termination of Jerome Powell cannot come fast enough. He says he won't leave, even if you ask him to. Do you believe you have...
If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But
do you believe you have the power to remove him, and are you trying to do that?
I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
Are you trying to remove him?
I think Trump just found his public enemy number one. Whatever happens to the economy from this point forward will be laid at the feet of Powell. How dare he stop Trump's perfect plan, they'll say. It's his fault. We were in the greatest economy, now we're in the greatest depression. We were so close. Of course, it doesn't matter what the lie is. Their brain-dead cult will just accept any excuse. I'm Tony Hinderman with Really American, and I'll catch you next time.